Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is Lisa from Question the Narrative. And today it's a real honor and a treat. I get to have my dear friend Abby Wynn here, all the way here from Ireland, from Dublin, Ireland, here. Abby is a wonderful healer, an energetic healer. And Abby, it's great to have you on Question the Narrative. Just a little bit about this. Question the Narrative here. We are here to question everything, whatever we see, whatever we hear, and mostly now what we see, we know is not necessarily the real truth behind it. So we're very open to all of the different questions and welcome you here. How are you today, Abby?
Oh, it's great to be here. And I think Question the Narrative is something that I do all the time. It's something that I get my people to do. As a trained psychotherapist, we have to question the story that any of our clients are bringing and not collude and not go into the victim and not be overwhelmed with emotion or go into sympathy. I think I actually explained this to somebody yesterday. If you start feeling the emotion of the person in front of you, and you hear my throat's jamming up, so this is what we have to talk about. If you start feeling the emotion of the people that are with you, you're no good to them. You're no good to them. You get drowned in their emotion. And so emotion is something we must experience as it passes through us. And there's a lot of emotion around at the moment and a lot of different narratives as well. So it's great to be able to talk about it with you.
It's great. It's interesting. You raise an interesting subject. I was just listening to a couple different interviews with Dr. Christiane Northrup, who I think is a wonderful healing soul. You know, she's a board certified doctor who decided licensing in the allopathic medicine in the US is not so great. And she's talking about the same thing about the emotions and how we as empaths, and she in particular was doing this with her patients, and it didn't serve her patients well to get into the empathy, because then we get into the victim mentality. And you already raised that victim mentality. And you're right. It's like we can use that as a great excuse to not go through the emotions on that and create a narrative. I know I did that very well. I used to be an expert at that one.
It's difficult for people to admit to it.
I have to admit, I was great at creating a narrative. That's why I'm questioning the narratives. It's like you gave me 2 data points. I'd create a narrative, and I actually should be a creative writer because I created a narrative.
Well, I am a creative writer because it's easier to explain this to people through story. I think it's really interesting. That they can get lost in the story, and we see it in the movies all the time, and then you go, okay, but then you step back from being in the story or being involved in the story and go, well, what are they really saying here, and what if this bit of it was real? And we're seeing a lot of that now in the disclosures that we're seeing. And I'll give you an example, right? One time I watched this movie with Nicolas Cage, and this was years and years ago. And I've been awake, but I think all of us who think we're awake have realized we haven't really been awake until the last 3 years, and it's layers and layers and layers coming off. But I was watching this movie with Nicolas Cage, and it was called Knowing. So people who might have seen it, where he has this list of numbers, and he's figuring out what the numbers are, and are they coordinates, and is it space-time locations, and then there's incidents that are happening. And then the page just ends with an incident. And then there's nothing else. And it's like, what the hell is this? And then every incident, he's figuring out the numbers. Oh, this is what the numbers must mean. But he's running out of numbers. And it's like, well, why does it stop? It's just, and the end of the movie for me was like getting a kick in the stomach. And I rang up a friend of mine, and I told him, and he said, that's because you've lived through it.
Oh, wow.
Either here on Earth on a replay or on another planet, and being on other planets and having many lifetimes and being a soul in a body and a body in a soul. As a trained psychotherapist, I just knew psychotherapy wasn't going to kick it. You don't have enough just in the mind work. You need to take the step back and go, okay, and take the step back. And why did I say that? And that's not something I normally would say, but somebody was around you who needed to witness you saying that, and they go off with that. So you're a walk-in part in other people's lives and plays and scenarios, and you might have to step into an energy or an archetypal energy to act out something that you come away and go, that's not me. I normally wouldn't have done that, but it was so profound for them. And it was one of those moments that sets off the domino effect for that person. So we have to let these things go and not get stuck in them. So
that's beautiful. That's really interesting. Do you remember the movie The Holiday, where one of the lead characters goes into Cameron Diaz's home in LA, and she meets this very old-time Hollywood playwright, and he says to her, first of all, he goes, you have a meet cute. And that is, we were supposed to meet and how you meet. And those are always very significant, like who you meet. But he goes to her, you need to become the leading lady in your story, in your life story.
yeah.
Because when we are giving our power away, we forget to be the leading character in our own story, whilst we play the bit parts for everybody else. And I thought that's a really, that's a very profound statement that he said.
It really is. And that goes back to what you said about Christiane Northrup and the empathy and getting lost in the emotions. Now, empathy is okay, but when it bleeds into sympathy, that's when it's not okay. And it's because you then start feeling them as your own. But if you're empathic, you can step into someone else's shoes, but then you step out of them again. And that's the piece that people forget. And it's really interesting when you're questioning the narrative, Lisa, is there's a belief that we cannot relate to other people unless we are in pain with them. And this is really important, really, really important, because it goes through all the conditioning of our entire society and the fabric of the paradigm that we basically want to smash. And it's so interesting because there's this book with Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama. And they actually say it straight out. They say, when you're happy, you cannot relate to other people, or people cannot relate to you, or there's this jealousy or this difficulty. And it's like you are above them and you have to come down to their level and be in pain. So there's almost an apologetic sense. I'm really sorry that I'm happier than you.
Wow, you're so right about. I just can think about many incidences in my life where that's what I do in order to connect with somebody. And yeah, so what do you suggest though? That's such it's an amazing observation. You're absolutely right. What do you do? How do you address that? Because isn't that like the whole purpose for us, is to be that energetic happiness and bring people up?
No, it's not.
Okay. This is good. I love it. Okay, good.
Oh no, we didn't come here to be happy. We came here to grow. The pursuit
also
of
to
happiness.
be happy too, like have happiness in our lives, right?
Well, somebody said the pursuit of a hairsuit instead of happiness, because the elusive pursuit of happiness takes you away from doing your inner work, whereas stillness and peace and balance, discipline and being a good person and sharing and helping when you can. And we have that typical paradigm again, where we're helping when we don't have the energy to help, and then we become resentful because there's nothing left for us. So all these are things that we need to name them. We need to name them and break them. And I think the paradigm of you must suffer to grow also has to shift. Now, yes, there will be suffering, but you process it quicker. It's about processing the emotions. And I actually just recorded a piece in my car coming in, because this is coming up to the surface and people really need to understand this.
Yeah.
It's a full moon today when we're recording this, and people are saying, well, what do I let go of? What do I let go of? And I said, well, you certainly don't let go of a piece of yourself that you find difficult, or a piece of yourself that's struggling, or a piece of yourself that you don't like. You don't let go of any of those pieces of you. You let go of the emotion that you can't process. You let go of the heavy, stagnant emotion that was too much for you or overwhelming for you to process, because emotions are how we express ourselves, how we navigate in the world. So somebody said to me there last night, why do we even have emotions? Because if we didn't, what do you think the world would be like? And we can see, it's very apocalyptic, or what's the word, all these zombies and all these people. It's an excuse for saying what are they? The non-playing characters don't have emotions. They don't have a soul. They're not wholehearted. For me, it's possible that pieces of their souls have left, or that they're not able to process emotion. So it's interesting, because now you've frozen on me. So are we there? Shall I wait for you to come back? Because it says we're still recording.
Yeah, we're still good. Did I freeze or because you froze for me? Oh, it's my internet. I've been having
No,
problems.
but you need, well, we need to
We'll-
talk about that too. Because
Yeah.
whenever something important is said across the internet, there's a blip, there's a energy release or a burst, or maybe the people who are watching this who are understanding the concept are going, ooh, and then there's a release, and then it affects the internet, because the way the internet's designed is it maps our hologram of our soul.
Wow. See, now that's interesting too. I was just, I mean, you've raised so many points that I want to ask about, but one of the things that I asked about last week and the question of the week was about AI. Is AI good or bad? And I was talking about Chat GPT, where we're here training this new super AI. And I think all of a sudden we're starting to see real glitches in our connectivity based on that. And you're right. I think it's an AI construct. How does that resonate with you?
Well, I spoke to my son, excuse me, who sent me articles about how they made Chat GPT, and it's a whole bunch of people just putting in lots and lots and lots of information, and then Chat GPT is working at the level at which it is, and it doesn't actually exponentially learn. So that's the mainstream narrative of that.
Now it learns.
Right.
Yeah.
But then there's the meta, the stepping back, and the supernatural. Okay, so when you bring in the supernatural, then you can know, okay, well, maybe in its current state, Chat GPT isn't learning, and it's restricted by the amount of information. Let's say that whole thing about, let's make a beautiful poem about Biden, but it won't write anything about Donald Trump, is because of how it's been programmed, that it's not allowed. But the supernatural forces could be tinkering away with the algorithm in the background and shifting things and moving things. And I just find it fascinating. I wrote a short story about it, because I needed to work things through in my head about AI and where is this all going. And I think it's inevitable that we're going to progress, but we get to say, we have to take our power back and reclaim the part of us that's scared and say, no, this could be good. Because think about Elon, right? And the chips in people's brain. If you're a paraplegic and you can't walk, wouldn't it be good to be able to have use of your limbs? Or if they make an exoskeleton that you can use with your thoughts, so you can walk around the house. Or I find that 3D printing for people with lost limbs is incredible, especially with children. And there are people in Ireland who print out hands and send them to Africa to children who don't have hands. And there's one man in particular who makes them like the Marvel superheroes, so that the children who are devastated, who don't have a hand, suddenly have a hand like Iron Man with the colors and the art, you know, and it starts to work for them. So I think there is a place for this. Can you imagine a hip replacement that's successful? You know, my mother is complaining because 2 of her friends have had hip replacements recently, and their feet now aren't the same length. And they need to buy shoes with extra thick soles because the guy who did the hip replacement cut away too much bone and the leg is too short.
Oh, that's
so, I mean,
yeah.
When you think about airplanes and how old that technology is, and the way that you do surgery in hospitals right now, to me, it feels that they've been withholding technology for the past 80 years, say that they can do so much more than they're telling us.
Oh, so I believe they've been holding back technology for hundreds and hundreds of years, and we have all of this great stuff. So part of my view on the narrative change is that every time something breaks, I'm like, this is the best news ever, because the system that we're in is so insufficient and it had to break.
So I'm going to ask you this question. Based on what we've just said, do you think the version of Chat GPT, the AI that we now, the common people in the world, are seeing, is the best version that they have?
No.
Or is this the version that they're showing us?
It's a version. Actually, I think it's a really interesting subject, and I'm really happy to get into this whole idea with AI. First of all, technology into itself is benign. It's the intention of the technology and how we're going to use it, because I believe that the whole construct of this spiritual war that we're in is AI versus is organic versus artificial. However, AI is really, really important.
But you see, if you're saying organic versus artificial, then what you're doing is labeling the artificial with the evil, where it's good against evil, plain and simple. And we could use everything.
It's a good against evil, but also the technology, I shouldn't say just organic. There's a way to use AI in all of these things. So right now, ChatGPT it was originally, I think, constructed, because actually it was created by a company called OpenAI, and OpenAI is owned by Elon Musk and the guy who started Y Combinator.
That's interesting.
So 2015, Silicon Valley, that version of Elon Musk was out there creating this, and they wanted to have an AI that was good for humanity. And this AI was supposed to learn, it was going to do all these things. And what they say the intention is sounds good, just like all the different things that have come out into our world. And I looked at the first thing, and the first thing.
What did they say their intention was, though? I mean, so all the kids at school could plagiarize their homework, because that's what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was actually to take away the mundane and to help you to create a more efficient life. Now, let's think about the world that we've come into and the shrinking of populations that work, the functioning part of our economy. Some of this can be really, really good. But going back to what
that's their assumption as to what mundane is, and it's not necessarily mine or yours.
Yeah, no, so going into it, the whole idea of this AI was to take away the everyday kind of things that was too much effort, the mechanical, repetitive, non-creative types of things. But they created this thing, and then they got everybody in Silicon Valley around there to go for it. And they said, this is the part that really makes my antenna go up, is that, but it's for free. You can use it for free. Now, what else does that sound like?
Oh, yeah. But just remember that we're learning now that the CIA built Facebook type technology before they.
There you go. Oh, so Abby, come down the thought pathway with me a little bit more on that. So it's for free. However, to their investors who've already spent like $1 billion on this, we have a revenue model, and that revenue model is worth over $1 billion a year. So we're free, and we've got a revenue model. That sounds a little bit like our social media platforms as well. And how do you do AI? Like, having worked in the technology sectors before, every AI requires learning. In a way, it's like your child. And your child always becomes smarter than you. I mean, that's the intention they have. This AI will become smarter. So they knew that as well. That was also the intention of what it was, because they wanted it to become smarter than us. But they were trying to find a way to capture the creative vision of a human, which is powerful, infinite, God spark, amazing. So to me, there are so many conflicts in there. And now I think that it's been allowed out. And what they're doing is they're trying to let people come to the conclusion on their own, good, bad, indifferent, or can I use it for some good? Can I use it for some bad? But this is a thing that is meant to be discussed and meant to be analyzed as to how we choose to integrate it into us.
This leads me into self-regulation, right? Yeah. Self-regulation, and what that means on a psychological point of view is that I can process and manage my own emotions.
Yeah.
And most of us our age can, because you fall, you start to cry, you have to contain it and gather yourself and get back up and go. And so we've learned how to do that. But when you look at parents now, what happens when their kids fall and cry or don't get what they want? They hand them the phone, or they hand them the game, or they hand them the iPad, and they can't self-regulate. They can't get a hold of themselves and contain it and come back from an emotional upheaval. They need something to help them do this. And what's happened then on top of this, right, is that the government treats us like children. So the government are handing us our iPads to calm us down, and handing us the free donuts and the movies and the shows if we are good little people and go to bed on time and stay home when they want us to stay home and all that kind of stuff. So we as a society have forgotten how to regulate, we've forgotten how to be responsible, and we've forgotten how to be an adult.
Well, it's really interesting. Oh, go finish.
Well, I was just going to say, so then they released this AI thing. If people can't put down the phone, switch off YouTube and go to bed, or give them, and all of the advice is take an hour before bed and turn off all the blue screens and sit in peace and silence and read a book that's made of paper, not a book on your and allow your body to calm down, to go to, people can't do that. I can't do that. They've designed all of this to be addictive.
And they've done that beautifully.
And it's very, to have the power, the discipline to say, I'm going to eat 3 meals a day. I'm going to put away the blue light. How many people do you know have had to delete TikTok because they can't? They lose their mind, can't turn it off. My husband keeps putting it on his phone and taking it off and putting it on and taking it off. And I'm in on Telegram all the time, but what I do is I just sit for a moment and I say, show me what I need to see. And I go on and I see it, and then I close it down and I go and do something else.
Abby, that's a really important point. I don't know if others are seeing that, or people that you see are seeing that. I feel so blessed. And the more I say I'm blessed with it, the more it happens. I see exactly what I'm supposed to see at the exact right time.
Yeah. But you see, that's like drawing you with the black lines, like a coloring book, and you're inside the lines and you're contained in yourself.
Yeah.
The question is people who follow the narrative and people who don't, and what's the difference between the two? And I think part of it is to do with the ability to self-regulate, the ability to have discipline, to say, no, I'm not making that choice. I'm not getting pulled in, because many people bleed outside of those lines.
Yeah.
And they bleed into the computer screen, they bleed into, so they can't tell the difference between a conversation that they had with ChatGPT and a conversation that they had with their best friend.
Exactly, because it started out, I don't know if you're familiar with what was going on in Japan, since they didn't have enough workers and they said they were robots, and these robots were becoming nurses to the elderly because they didn't have people to do that. And then people were starting to have, as companions, it became the companion to the elderly. That's the way it becomes really, really scary. But I think you've mentioned so many things that are really resonating with me. First one is that you talk about this connection we have with an addiction to information. And every piece of information creates our consciousness or affects our consciousness in so many different ways, and how we're doing it. This beautiful soul, I don't know if you know him, JSNP4. He's been, he does a lot of crypto stuff. He works with, I love this guy, Woo Woo Dude. You just got to love his name. I call him Mr. Dude, Woo Woo Dude. And he's an intuitive as well. And it's work with Janine, and it's conversation with Janine and Jean-Claude, but he's someone who's come from a very spiritual upbringing. And he just came out with a video, and he said, stop being addicted to the news.
Yeah, but you see, I have an antidote to that.
Oh, go ahead, tell us.
Oh,
we all need it. I know I need it. But
we're not really addicted to the information. We're wired for survival, and we need to look for risk. And when we look for risk, because we really are all about ourselves, and how is this going to impact on me, and how is this going to affect me? And so you need to know everything about what's going on, because at some point in time it's going to affect you. And so by stilling your mind and realizing, well, here I am in my room, in my office, on my street, in my town, and what's happening here is really going to affect me a lot more than what's happening over there. And I don't have to keep checking over there. And the antidote really is the stillness within, to say, if something's going to happen, I bring all of my power here with me right now into this moment, and I'll handle it, because you've handled everything that's ever happened in your life up to this point.
Yeah.
And to be re-empowered. But you see, when you're scattered to the 4 winds or the 5 winds or the 7 winds, depending on how many dimensions you're tapping into and what's going on over here, what's going on over there, all of these distractions, all of these narratives, all of these stories are designed to take pieces of your power away from you, so that you're weaker where you're sitting, and then you're subservient, and then you can't self-regulate, and then you lose the run of yourself, and then you get confused and you can't tell the difference between your mother and ChatGPT, and it's about bringing yourself in and
Yeah.
saying, where are my boundaries? Where do I end in the rest of the world? Because
Yeah.
it's how we're wired. We're wired for risk. We're wired to survive. And it's time for us to stop being in survival mode. We're burning out. There's the adrenaline. You get addicted to adrenaline rush too.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the addiction.
That's interesting because you said a couple things, but the thing that really strikes me is the distraction part, because so many of these stories are this distraction right now. Look over here, look over there, because then you can't center yourself. It's not a negative to want to find information, but
No.
how you process this. And
Yes.
that's really interesting. What are you finding right now are the best ways to come into your power, to focus you're in the present and get rid of the distraction and not have that be a negative for you?
Well, I have to remind myself that my first port of call is my children, because I'm a mother of 4.
Mhm.
So I must remind myself, are my children safe? Are they healthy? Are they going to go off and mutilate their bodies? Or are they thinking stupid, ridiculous things because they're being told? And then I have to do something about that to make sure that I feel that I'm doing the best job that I can at home.
Yeah.
And then beyond the home, let's say my mother, my father, my stepmother, the extended family, are they listening to me? No. Have I tried? Yeah. Can I do any more? Not really. Let it go.
Yeah.
And then you have to say, okay, back to the nanny state, which is what I said earlier. People are being treated like children. They're acting like children. So do you want to just come in and scream at them and tell them, you are idiots, you shouldn't be doing that? No, I can't do that. So say, okay. So the people that want to hear are the people that I will talk to. And maybe somebody is ready to hear. That's great. So I continue. I mean, I have a Telegram. I post stuff on Telegram. I posted 4 really difficult subject stories today. And I said, this is all going in the background. And how do you know any of it's true? You don't. You don't know any of it's true, but what's true for you? And it's like what we said before we started recording, the flowers are coming in. It's very cold right now. I've got a lovely coffee here. I know which coffee shop I like to go for my favorite coffee. And you increase the quality of your life. Maybe we need less things than we think we need, but get better quality things and have a better quality life and figure out your discipline, because it's all about processing emotion. And that's your inner work. Your inner work is to go, okay, why does this trigger me? Why does this upset me so much? And yes, if I could go out there all guns blazing and save 1,000 children from being mutilated or being abused, but then I step up as a healer and I offer these group sessions, and I had 97 people on a webinar last night, and all of them got a transmission and all of them became healers of the golden light like we did in Morocco.
Oh yeah.
The excitement of doing that. And we sent all this beautiful golden light to the white hats, and Honey's higher self showed up, Honey Golden. And so I told Honey Golden, and she wrote, she created a voice message for the people on the webinar, and I sent it to them, and they were so excited because this is how we're connecting now. And this is the world that we're creating, where we can come in, where we can send healing, where we can connect to each other. And they were so excited to hear from her. And it's like, this is what we create, and this is what we put our energy into. So when all of these distractions are going on, you can put your hand on your heart and saying, I'm doing as much as I can do. And I'm actually doing as much as I can do. And I'm doing all the things. Not like, oh, I should be going to the gym and I should be going for a walk. No, I'm actually doing that. So I'm not creating stress for myself in my life. I've talked to my mother and she doesn't understand me, but at least I've tried, and I can't do any more than that. And, and to do all of those things as a personal level, because then when you go to bed at night, if this is the last day of the rest of your life, go back to that movie with Nicolas Cage, and there's no more numbers and there's nothing else going to happen. And you have to stand in front of God and look back at your life with God and say, all of your regrets and all the things you wish, to clean all of that out of you now. So that you can face God at any moment, at any time, and go, I did the best I could. And God is there and says, I know, and I was with you all the way. And I get shivers when I say that. But this is how we have to live now. This is how we have to live.
Yeah, so you're saying take it inside, and that's the most important thing. So it's local to your family, local to your community, local to yourself, mostly on that, which is so beautiful.
Well, I mean, the people on my course were in Australia, they were in America, they were all over the world. So to really understand that each of us has a creativity, a talent, you know, and if you don't know what that is, if you're watching this and going, well, I don't have one. Well, you do, you just haven't found it yet. To ask, what am I called to do? Where am I to go today?
Yeah.
But when you're doing that, to make sure you're asking your higher self, because this is a supernatural event, you know, so you're going to be asking the devil, and going to tell you to put your hand in the blender. You know, that's what the devil's going to tell you to do. Yeah. So you don't want to ask the devil what you're doing. Make sure you're
Or be open to it. That's so fun. That's so funny.
You know, it's like Woody Harrelson on Saturday Night Live. You know, on one shoulder I have a devil, and on the other shoulder I have an even bigger one.
That's great. No, it's beautiful what you're saying, like you're saying, the nanny state being told what to do. And it's really coming into and asking yourself what to do all the time. And each of these things are decisions. I say to my daughter all the time, and she now laughs at me because I say to her, so there are only, you know, no decision's a bad decision. No, not having a decision is a bad decision, but making a decision, it's all about learning. And that's what we're here to do, the experience of the learning. And you only learn by doing it. And I said, no decision's a bad decision. There are only two things you can't undo: having a child and killing somebody. After that, this is your path to learning. And to me, those are really critical things. And I do it in a joking way. And I say, at the end of the day, you've got to laugh at it, because you've got to try everything. And everybody's so wrapped up in like, I've got to make the perfect decision. And it's a lifelong decision. If I move there, if I do this, that they get stuck. And that's when they look to the states, like, tell me what to do. Tell me where to go to school. Tell me.
That's when I would get people coming to me and asking me, and I say, okay, well, here's a fact. If your energy is crap, your decision is going to be crap. So don't worry about making a decision right now, and focus on cleaning up your act, clean up your energy, clean up your emotions, all of the latent, heavy, repressed stuff you've been carrying around, which changes how you feel. Get rid of all of that. And when you wake up and you're feeling good, and everyone's saying, oh, I can't relate to her because she's so happy. How dare she? When you're feeling good, that's when you make good decisions. And that's why they don't like us feeling good. When you're in your power, you make a different decision to how you decide when you're not. So you're right about it's important to decide, but you can also decide, I'm not going to decide about this until I'm feeling better, and then I'll make a decision. And I think that's when we are totally empowered. And that's really important.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. That adds to the storyline of it. I think that's really, really exciting on there. Incredible. I love that.
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. So what are you getting a sense of now? The energy, like you were doing a healing session last night. You do healing, bigger healings. What are you getting the sense of energy for people right now? How are things?
It's really interesting. It's changing so quickly. Yes, I was saying to you that I don't go into my group sessions with an agenda, because I would have written the agenda, let's say, a day before, or even several hours before, and then the energy shifted again. You know, so being with what's going on now. What I'm finding, a lot of people don't trust their own intuition. And so I've said several times, the first thing that you think, the first thing is what it is. And then you go and you change it and you tell a story to yourself, and it moves away from what the original is. It's like when you wake up after a dream, and all the dream, you know, analysis people say, write it down, what you think it is when you wake up. But the more you sit with it, the more it's like it turns into treacle or honey, and it's difficult to decipher. And it's like, but then you start telling yourself a story about it, and you move away from the actual truth of the essence of what it is.
Yeah.
So when you feel in your stomach like a, and then, oh, something's different, it's possible we change timelines. It's possible that some big event that was going to happen is now no longer going to happen.
Right.
So the way that I've seen it recently is like, you know, the Indian sitar with all the strings, and then it's kind of branching into a many-headed guitar. So the strings are beginning to separate. This is kind of how I see it. So that as you go up higher, now this is just my imagery. As you go up higher, it gets narrower and narrower. And the further out we go, the less we are able to go back to a different string, which could be a timeline, like the guitar string or a frequency or technology. But you're still on your head of the guitar, the neck that you're on, and you've still got several choices in that one. But as it's going up and up and up, there's fewer and fewer. And I believe, and this is really interesting, I believe we're kind of at a point now where we've chosen which neck of the guitar we're on. However, it doesn't mean that all the other ones don't exist. So I think that we could be in parallel with people who are on different necks of different guitars, and we can meet somewhere in the middle and say hello, but they're over here and we're over here. And it's like, oh, they're so far away from me now. I don't know how to connect to them anymore, but we're still here on this plane. And then it's more like a fine tuning.
Wow.
Like a fine tuning, like precision, which one do we want to go on? And I still believe that we have a choice. So you and I, even though we're meeting here today, we're connecting in this moment, we could still be on different strings in the same neck of the same guitar, which is really interesting. So it's like you could say, okay, well, all of this stuff is happening over there, let's say the war or devastation, but we're not on that neck of that guitar. So what happens when you bend it and shift it? Maybe we're pulling people back, and we're talking about distraction and all the stories coming out. Maybe we're affecting the timeline. The more energy we're putting into things that aren't in the trajectory of where we're going to, because obviously our brains can only process things to the limit at which our brain can process things. But we all know that stuff is much more complicated than that.
Yeah, it's much more complicated.
Much more. So it's like a fractal, and we're only seeing a small bit of it. And then there's more and there's more and there's more. You know, and I'm getting epiphanies all the time. When I was 28 years old, I thought I knew everything. And I thought, okay, my journey's finished. And now I'm going to be 52. And I have more questions now than I ever had in my entire life.
I know, right? And the more you know, the more you think you know, you realize you don't know.
But I saw on TikTok, and I don't know if you've seen this video with the boy who says, here's a one-dimensional universe. There's only one dimension. It's like a straight line, and that's inside a two-dimensional, and then that's inside a three-dimensional, and that's us. But then we're inside the four-dimensional. I'm going, okay, well, when I speak to angels, maybe they are here with us, but they're just in the different dimension. And that's how we're communicating now, and we're bleeding through into each other. But then if there's a fourth, there must be a fifth. And then there has to be a sixth and a seventh, because if it's a fractal and it's small, it's got to get bigger. And our brain then goes, okay, that's enough. Can't do any more than that.
Yeah, right. So where do you think it ends, actually? Okay, that's like really complicated.
But that's the whole thing. I've written poems about this, you know, Men in Black, the galaxies in Orion's belt. And I think the choice of Orion is very interesting, because Orion is coming up a lot. If you're noticing a lot of the stories, a lot of this stars, but Orion's belt, the galaxy that's in the marble around the cat, who's called Orion. And you zoom into the necklace and you zoom into the marble, there's a whole nother solar system and a whole nother universe and a whole, you know, so we could be in a marble in a garden on another planet somewhere, and they're just playing croquet with us. So that's why it has to be about, this is my house, and this is my desk, and this is my street, and this is my family, and this is my road, and this is my community. And what can I do for my community?
Right.
My community, as in your community, could be people online.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really, really beautiful. Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
No, it is overwhelming, because I mean, what you're saying here is like how we connect in and we grow. That's what we're doing here. We're here to grow, have lessons to do, and joy, as you say, can separate you because some people can't find it.
Well, can I just add something with those guitars and the necks?
Yeah, please.
What's really interesting to me is, and I've heard people say this, that aspects of ourselves are coming into ourselves.
Yes, I love this. Okay, so tell us how.
As the timelines so we've chosen where we're going.
Yeah.
Somehow or other, in some spiritual way. There might be another Abby somewhere else that's chosen something else, but this Abby here has chosen to be here in this timeline. But then if there's multiple different possibilities, they're disintegrating as we're going into the stage where she's on this neck of this guitar. She's not on the one over there. So she doesn't need to be on that one anymore. So we disintegrate the Abby over there, and she comes into this one. And suddenly I feel, oh, I feel much more like myself now. I feel more power coming in, because that essence of you is here, and it's more of a resource for you. Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense. I've often wondered if, you know, there were parts of me, because I've noticed moments in my life where I've not just gone like that a little bit, it's like, and
Yeah.
then, and I've wondered, one point I said, was I walking? Did something change quite a bit in me? But I think what you've just said is a lot more of that. Different aspects of myself have integrated into me, and I've been able to process that consciousness. So to me,
So,
what you just said is really powerful.
well, I've
Really.
been asking, and maybe people who are watching this could ask as well, if there's any aspect of me that's trapped in a timeline that's redundant, please can I have that energy back? Let's see what happens. How do you feel? I've just felt a shift come in.
Yeah, can you say that again? Because I want people to hear that again.
So if there's any aspect of me, because I always speak for me on behalf of everybody so that they can echo the feeling. So when I say me, they say me as well, and they mean them, right? So if there's any aspect of me that's on a redundant timeline, any of my energy is stuck somewhere across all space and time, can it please come back to me in this timeline, in this body, in this reality, in this moment right now?
I'm doing that with you right now. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and just
That's
wait and
powerful.
feel, well, what happens? And do you feel more of a solidity coming in? I'll tell you something. I was watching Mark Atwood talking to this woman, Gloria, and Gloria is Australian and she does amazing work with survivors of abuse. And something that they were talking about was that they can't find their voice. They can't find their voice. And so she's doing work with the voice. And what I realized was that people, any kind of survivor of anything, it's not that they can't find their voice. It's not that they don't know what they want to say. They know what they want to say. They don't have the power to say it. That's the issue. They need the power because they bloody well know exactly what they would do if they were powerful. But we're too busy being apologetic, because if we're nice and we're happy and we're vibrant and we're robust, then people just won't be able to relate to us.
Actually, no, what you're saying actually is really interesting. When you said that, all I can imagine is the fractalization of what we are, and we're trying to integrate all these aspects of each other. Is that actually what the dark side has been doing all along, is fractalizing us and
well, you
creating?
saw his poem. It's exactly on the nail. The brightest people are the ones that they've been targeting because they're so bright, because they remind you how bright you are.
Yeah. Well, if we can't see it, we can't imagine it. But going back to the fractalization part, where you're saying integrating back to it. So we're in this time where we're integrating all aspects of ourselves. And was that always the way the universe grows, or was that the distortion that happened within the universe that created this negative? And now we're able to move forward from it by integrating all of those aspects of ourselves.
This is what I'm hearing as you're saying this, is that these are unprecedented times, and that it was never meant to go like this. But as it turned and went into this direction that we're going in, it's like a call for help. And so what I've been feeling recently is that we are poured into these bodies in this world, and this world is real. This world is very real, but there are certain of us who are here to shift the collective consciousness. So we might not all be of human form, but we've lived many lifetimes in humanity, and now is our time where we say, okay, I'm calling all of my energy from wherever it is, whatever planet it is, to come into my body now, because then I'm going to send out a shockwave of light that's going to wake up people to remind them who they are, so that they can do it too. Because the ones who have been here, there's a collective amnesia where they forget who they are, and then the conditioning and the pounding of all the life experiences and the lack of ability to process emotion. Plus, oh, look, here's an iPad, play your game, because then you can't self-regulate your emotion, and then you're going to be a child in an adult's body who's got to be told what to do because they can't make a decision for themselves. Needs something big like this to wake them up.
Yeah, wow.
That makes sense. And so, I still question, who is God? Why are we here? But I have a communion with God, not just, a communion as in God light comes into me and I feel it and it's palpable. So that's what I trust. That's where my faith is. And to say, okay, well, we can't see the hole because the hole is too much. And there's all the distraction again. We pull it in and go, okay, well, what can I do here?
Wow.
Be the lighthouse. and
Yeah.
you be the lighthouse, and then we shines our light, and then we make that grid. And then it's something that's palpable. It's something that solidifies. It's something that we can step into when we say we're going to put our energy into this. So all of this stuff that's been going on, I think, and I think that this matches in with the stories that most people are saying, which is we're very interesting right now because this has never happened. And it's like we're the reality TV show for the rest of the universe, and all of the, the ETs are watching us, and all of the guides are here because they want us to win. But we have to reach a threshold. We have to do it ourselves, I think. And I think we're getting there. That's kind of what I'm feeling.
That I believe is really true. And the thing that you sort of started off with, we are, those of us who are the lighthouse or integrating more factions or facets of ourselves together, it's important. But it's also because you said, then we can show. And one thing that strikes me on that, and it was an experience I had, I was part of this group where we were doing some primary research in the Balkan region about 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago. And we ended up speaking with people and, governmental, economics, religious, people who are just in business, people who are just, living everyday lives. And what became very clear to me is that whole Balkan region, economically very devastated, and mostly because it was really hard to envision. And what became very clear to me is that they had over 100 years where they haven't had the freedom to create their own life. So since pre-World War I, that region was turned into war-ravaged, communism, without that, the ability to create and to direct their own lives, being told what you've said all the time by the government. And a lot of them lost that ability to create their own lives because they hadn't seen anybody do it before. Now,
inherited pain.
Right. And now with the advent of the internet and connection with people from outside of that region, the children, the young teenagers were starting to see, and they were the spring flowers that were creating. And that was amazing to see, because you're right, you can't do it unless you can see it. And this is the important part about all of the things that we do. Like, it's so important to show and to do, because there are many people stuck not being able to have their own voice, as you said, the strength to do it. And we don't realize how
to do it. It's the strength to do it. And to stop worrying about how. That's so important, to stop thinking about the how, because the way we create now with the energies that are here now is that we have to know very clearly what it is we want first. And it's like it lines up itself then, and the how is the road to connect from here to there. But if you don't know what it is you want, I'll give you an example. It's a really simple one. But my daughter, who thinks I'm crazy, when she was at school, it was about 4 or 5 years ago. But we always loved watching Doctor Who. We would watch Doctor Who together. Yeah. So the whole concepts of time and chronology and everything, it's in our consciousness for a reason. Why do we love these stories? It's because it's in us. So she's there, I have to write an essay, and and I really need to get a good mark and blah, blah, blah. And so I said to her, okay, well, somewhere in the future is an essay that you've written that got an A. Top marks. Where is it? And she's like, what do you mean? I said, okay, well, you're here in space and time. Throw out your lasso into the future. Which timeline is it? I was just joking, but I wasn't really. Where did you see the teacher handing you back your result, and you have a big A on it and you're feeling really proud of yourself? And she, okay. And I said, now just download it into this reality. She's there, So she goes off and she says to me, I did that. So, okay, we just wait and see. And she got the A.
Manifestation. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Like so many different things. She didn't need to know how. You didn't tell us how to do it. You just said
what we're doing, and it's all the story, and we're looking at this over here and that over there, and not going, what can we create?
Wow.
So we create that's new. It's like the paradigm. It's like the health system. we can't fix it. It's so broken. We have to create something new over here. So sit down and visualize. Well, what would you like to see? I'd like some doctors who are open to holistic medicine. I'd like to have somewhere where I'm going to go and feel empowered, even if I'm in fear because there's something going on in my body and I don't know what it is, where I'm given options and choices to write down exactly what we want to create and then energize that. Instead of looking at the pain and the devastation and that guy's a so-and-so and this person's a bastard and how the hell could they have done this to us?
Well,
They did it to us because we let it happen to us because this is how we've been.
well, that, you're right. It only happens if we allow it. But that's so important about pulling in that timeline, because you're right. In the quantum field, everything exists. Everything has existed. It's just which one we want to pull into it. But I think you said that in such a beautiful way. So how do we teach our children that? Because
I think we need to. They already know.
Yeah. Well,
They
we got to
already
stop
know.
actually indoctrinating them into this system where we tell them to memorize. I mean, I know my daughter's this amazing creative spirit. Memorization wasn't her skill. And I think it's actually been the most brilliant thing that she is not an expert in memorizing.
Yeah, I've got 4 artists as my children because I let them follow their heart and follow what they love. And I'm not putting pressure on them to get all their exams correct. You know, she needed the A. I just did it as an experiment. But I would often ask her, how can you prove to me that God did not create you in this moment with your memories intact and that you are the center of the universe? And we have those conversations where she hates them because it's like, oh, I can't disprove this. And I said, exactly,
Right.
open your eyes, see things in a different way.
Wow.
And they do. But they don't need to know what's been. I mean, Honey says this all the time, Honey Gold, that they're the builders coming in and we're the cleaner uppers, we're the healers and we're fixing it. So that they are hitting the ground running and they're seeing what isn't there and they're building that for us. You know, it's really obvious to them what's broken and they're not interested. They're moving on. Now, the one thing that I would be upset about is the concentration spans. But when you think about it, when they really care about something, they will spend hours doing it. My youngest daughter will sit and paint for 3 hours and not even notice the time passing. You know, but she won't pay attention in history class unless it's something that she's interested in. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, I see school as a glorified babysitting service. And my children are going through the school system because that's the experience that they're going to be having. That's just what it is. And then they can come home and talk about it and get a different point of view and make up their own mind to trust them to do that.
But I think we're going back into that whole system about creating, you know, knowing that all of these systems are broken and creating the new one on the side over there. I think that is happening. And I think it's really important to be part of that visualization, to have it become part of us, because these things are really important. Healthcare, financial systems. I was actually going to start to do, and we'll have to talk a little bit more about this, a whole series on our belief systems and how it stops us from creating the things that we choose to do.
Well, didn't you just say that about, was it the Balkans? Because they couldn't create anything because they didn't know they could.
Yeah. But the belief systems that even stick us into it. So the world that we see, the Western world, which we thought was so much more advanced than the Eastern world, or all of this
brainwashing, isn't it?
Of course, and more of the technology that we've had, that how great we are with this, they are just boxes that keep us into it with those belief systems. So those underpin belief systems keep us to say that in order for us to survive and to eat, we need money. We need money to live. We need money to do that. And I'd really love to explore, I'm going to explore that one, but I think it's also in health and it's in education and everything we do, that these belief systems are the way we enslave ourselves. And that's the education system that you're talking about too. It's like the attention span. I know my daughter was the same way until she got into something she loved. It was like, wow. She's like, and
but aren't we all enslaved by the idea that we're not allowed to have good, vibrant health? We're not allowed to thrive because if we do, then the people that we love will not be able to relate to us. So we have to be apologetic for being healthy.
You know, that goes
start with that.
Yeah. And remember how, I don't know if your children were like this, but my daughter, as she was growing up and she's 23 now, is to say that I want to fit in.
That's a teenage thing, isn't it? I want to fit in. I have to fit in. But I mean, I'm even thinking about this now, back to those aspects of ourselves that we don't want to deal with. you know, because they're too difficult. That's usually our inner teenager. I wrote a book called Heal Your Inner Wounds, and we start with Heal Your Inner Child. And oh, the child is lovely, and we love our inner child, and it's so easy to do. So many people do inner child. I did inner teenager work. My inner teenager would not let me write the chapter on healing your inner teenager. So the chapter of the book starts, my inner teenager is here and her arms are folded and her legs are crossed and she's tapping her foot at me and she's got this scowl on her face and she's not happy with me writing this chapter about her.
Wow.
But I'm going to do it anyway. We need to talk to these parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that need to belong, but exclude themselves. Because when we bring them in and then we process the emotion around it, then we're better able to be around each other. It's not about belonging to a group. It's about being at peace with all of the parts of yourself. Then you can be anywhere and not care if they like you or they don't like you, because you like you. And then you become more likable as a result of that.
Yeah, it's the energy they do. That's a great one. I think that's really fantastic. Well, Abby, we've already done an hour, so I just can't believe how quickly the time has gone. It's been such a pleasure. Can we do this again?
Absolutely. Anytime at all.
I loved it. Well, anything energetically right now, what do you feel? Is there something you want to share with everybody before we leave today?
Yeah, I think the most important thing, if people want to do a practice for themselves, is to allow themselves to feel safe in the moment by reminding themselves that they are safe in the moment. It's like saying, oh, it'll be okay. It is okay already. Because the addiction to always checking, the need to check the risk, and your antennas are up and got to be here and got to be there. So what you do is you say, okay, I'm drawing a line. I'm going to look at the information, but I'm going to ask first, show me what I need to see. And I'm going to shut it down, and I'm going to be okay with just being here. And if you're not okay with just being here, then ask yourself, well, what do I need to fix in me? So if today was the last day of my life and I have to stand in front of God and he's going to say, well, you know, that thing and that thing, and that you sort all that stuff out. Tell those people you love them, forgive the people you need to forgive, and forgive yourself. The most important thing, so that you can say, okay, today's going to be a lovely day. How can I support myself today so that I can be available to support other people? It's a different way of looking at life. So
yes, that's beautiful. Wonderful. Well, Abby Wynn, what a pleasure. Wonderful. Thanks, everybody. This is Lisa from Question the Narrative, and really enjoying my time with Abby Wynn, and we will see you soon. Have a beautiful day. Ciao.